The election goes on.
People.
The election goes on.
Republic.
The election goes on.
People's Party.
of the people.
People's Republicans. Democracy.
Democrats.
Democrats and Republicans.
Democrat, Republican, Independent.
Two-party system. Help keep the two-party system existent, make a strong America.
We have become a three-party system. Democrat, Republican, and McGovern.
Senator George H. McGovern.
Senator George McGovern.
Democrat George McGovern.
Senator McGovern.
Senator George H. McGovern.
He was christened George Stanley McGovern. Birthplace, Avon, South Dakota.
The senator from South Dakota and the next president of the United States, George McGovern. Richard Nixon is the fundamental issue of this national campaign.
McGovern, Democrat. For the people.
The right to govern comes directly from the people.
Government of the people and by the people and for the people. Worker, new citizen and old settler.
Black and white.
Or young or old.
Young and old.
Rich and poor.
North
Black
and
and
south. Right and left. Some of the rich. Most of the poor.
President Nixon cares about people.
The Russian people and the Chinese people and the American people and all the great peoples of the world.
This is conscience time for the people of America.
America, America, my country, 'tis of thee.
This is nation time for the people of America.
America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. That prayer is our promise.
56,000 American dead.
Come home, America, to the affirmation that we have a
The
dream.
American dream can't be fully realized until every person in this country has an equal chance to see it come true in his life.
For the time has come when we must stop talking about an American dream and start listening to the dreams of Americans.
The chance America now has to lead the way to a lasting peace in the world may never come again.
Home, America.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America. I'm getting sick and tired of hearing about what is wrong with America.
We reject the view of those who say, America, love it or leave it. We reply, let us change it so we may love it the more.
I'd like for all Americans to think about what is right with America.
I believe my country, right or wrong. If it's right, keep it right. If it's wrong, make it right.
I believe in the American system.
7 million tons of bombs on North and South Vietnam.
I see an America self-confident and at peace.
America will never become a second-rate power.
5 American presidents, Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Johnson, believed our country must have a strong defense if we were to have any hope of an enduring peace. President Nixon has kept us on that wise course. George McGovern has demonstrated that he will not.
With every fiber of my being, I love America. It is the greatest nation in the world, and I gladly offer my life in whatever way I can to preserve the greatness of this country.
I still believe, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
56,000 American dead, 300,000 wounded.
I love America.
We are united, Americans, North, East, West, and South, both parties, in our desire for peace. Peace with honor.
20,000 more American dead.
Peace with honor.
110,000 more American wounded.
Peace with honor.
550 more American captured or missing in action.
God bless America.
God bless America, the land that we love. Stand beside her and guide her.
California,
York Island, Redwood Forest is my land. Gulf Stream waters from California to the New York Island. This land from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, my land. This land was made for you and me. There is a new wind rising over the land, starting faintly amid the plains and rocky hills of South Dakota. It spread its gathering momentum to New Hampshire and Wisconsin and Massachusetts,
Louisiana, Missouri, Montana,
sweeping across the nation to California and back to Pennsylvania,
South Dakota, Utah, Dixon, the state of Washington, Wisconsin,
to New York,
Rhode Island,
and now to Miami.
Mississippi, Virginia,
North Carolina,
Indiana,
Oklahoma, South
Tennessee,
Carolina,
Ohio,
Tennessee, Texas,
Illinois,
and West Virginia.
Vermont.
Strong Nixon territory.
Ours is a good land, a proud land, a land that God has blessed abundantly, a land of personal liberty and the best hope for free men ever.
Watergate,
Nixon country.
McGovern country.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ours is a great and a free nation.
Today, we are a divided
This nation was founded on diversity. Ours is a great nation.
Great and a free
A
nation.
nation in which the people cannot choose its own leaders is a nation which is not
The free people in a free nation, proud and independent.
Watergate,
Lord, may our nation always be free,
Watergate,
and may our nation praise you forever and ever.
Face the nation.
Watergate,
Now this tragic war that has been going on so many years has been seen by more people than any war in history. It has been brought into our living rooms on a daily basis by television.
is politics
Today, the Navy announced the introduction of a new video bomb called Fat Albert, which has a television camera in its nose to direct the bomb to the target.
Senator George McGovern bought time on several local TV stations.
George McGovern speaks to the nation.
President Nixon ended his restrained campaign tonight with a brief TV message.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
The next President of the United States.
The next President of the United States, Senator George McGovern.
President George McGovern.
Senator George McGovern of South Dakota, Democratic nominee for President of the United States.
McGovern for President Nixon, now more than ever.
Nixon now! Stop the killing! Withdraw the troops in the war!
Good morning. How do you feel this morning?
Tonight, I ask for your support.
Tonight,
we welcome the spirit of America.
what's going to happen?
The fascinating, serious business of choosing candidates.
of all shapes and sizes are running hard for office.
The election goes on.
Stay tuned. Join us. Stay with us.
Stay with us.
Join us at the 1972 Democratic Convention and see why.
What's going to happen in
From
Miami Beach?
ABC News presents Convention 72.
Watergate,
Stay tuned and join
ABC News.
A city of radio and television trailers has sprung up around the convention hall.
WCBS TV News. Television alone spending $50 million on convention coverage this year. Campaign 72.
Convention 72.
Good evening. Well, it is the eve of the 36th Quadrennial Democratic Convention.
This is indeed the most representative convention in our history. We reformed our party and we let the people in.
The new people, the women, the minority groups, and the
Young people, black people, rural people, people from slums, Indians,
Black Americans.
Wallace people, McGovern people, Wallace people. There is indeed a new coalition in this country, a coalition of protest.
This is a coalition of change, a coalition of conscience, a coalition of progress.
The new people.
The Democrats can't win without labor, without the blacks, without the young.
The freaks and eccentrics.
Non-delegates.
The people.
A coalition of protest.
The freaks and eccentrics.
So many of our sensitive, idealistic young people
become frustrated and drop out.
Protest.
To succeed, we need everyone.
Yippee, Zippy, Zeitgeist, SDS, Youth International Party, Zeitgeist International Party.
Gay Alliance, men and women homosexuals who for the first time are coming out of the national closet.
The new people.
Gay people.
Many Democrats
Homosexuals.
who support George McGovern
Homosexuals.
also support gay liberation.
Anybody but McGovern.
Marijuana.
Anybody but McGovern.
Marijuana.
The freaks and eccentrics.
Marijuana.
Anybody but McGovern. Anti-McGovern, Stop McGovern Forces. Anybody but McGovern. Pro-McGovern Forces. Anybody but McGovern. Anti-McGovern, Stop McGovern Forces. Anybody but McGovern.
Stop McGovern Alliance.
Anybody but McGovern.
Craziest convention. Good afternoon from Convention Hall, where in just about 26 hours, the Democrats will start the process of choosing a man to run this fall against President Nixon.
The man with the most delegates committed to him before the convention begins is South Dakota Senator George McGovern.
McGovern's a louse, but Nixon's a bigger louse.
The most complicated and possibly the most interesting political stories of the century.
This year, to get the Democratic nomination, a candidate's going to have to receive 1,509 delegate votes.
More than 3,100 delegates have seats on the floor.
McGovern had 1,423 delegates publicly committed to him.
5 presidential candidates. Senator George McGovern.
I expect to be the nominee.
Senator Hubert H. Humphrey.
I can unify this party.
Senator Henry M. Jackson.
I can unify the party.
Senator Edmund S. Muskie.
The question of unifying a party or a country is more complicated than I might once have perceived it.
Representative Shirley Chisholm.
I would support the nominee of my party, with the exception of one person.
Governor George C. Wallace.
Hi, my name is Lee Wallace. When you cast your ballot for George C. Wallace.
I'm trying to stop Jackson, and I'm trying to stop Muskie, and I'm trying to stop Mr. McGovern.
The party yearns for a hero. This country has no king, no Fuhrer, no Delphic Oracle, no Platonic Academy of the All-Wise. It has only the presidency.
Tonight's the opening session.
Now is the time.
Tonight, Humphrey and Muskie drop out in face of overwhelming McGovern strength.
Now continue standing, please, for the Star-Spangled Banner.
The Stop McGovern movement collapsed today.
Tonight, the opening session.
Democrats, Box 9999, Washington, D.C., 20015.
With all the problems the Democrats have, their most serious problem is money.
Please call and send in your $1, $5, $10 to ensure that this Democratic Party can present its program and its candidate to the American people with full communication with every one of our 200 million fellow Americans.
Democrats, Box 9999.
To succeed, we need everyone.
Please join us by sending $25, or what you can, to McGovern for President, Washington, D.C.
Come home to the Democratic Party.
Now is the time.
There's something happening in this country.
Watergate.
Law and order.
Gun control,
National
Defense spending.
death penalty, Vietnam, Middle East,
Foreign aid. Welfare.
housing, busing.
Let's stand up now and vote for income and power for the people. People don't exist for the economy. The economy exists for the people. Income and power for the people. 43% of all the corporations in America last year paid zero tax. Last year, United States Steel paid zero tax. Zero tax. Last year, 122 people who have income in excess of $200,000 paid zero tax.
So let us stand for justice and jobs and against special privilege.
Income and power for the people.
Honest work must be rewarded by a fair and just tax system. Today does not reward hard work, it penalizes it.
We shall offer a plaque on the matter of welfare.
8 million children under the shame of being on welfare. 2 million mothers under the shame of being on welfare. 4 million elderly and disabled Americans under the shame of being on welfare.
We shall offer a plaque on the matter of law and order. Will be an issue in November.
Watergate.
In 1970, 80% of homicides involving the use of firearms were committed with handguns.
Law and order.
Organized crime.
Watergate.
New York's organized crime war has now taken the lives of 2 innocent bystanders.
Even the mafia makes mistakes.
Continuing struggle among New York's organized crime families.
2 meat merchants killed in a sudden blaze of gunfire.
2 more unexplained shootings on the New York streets this morning.
Killed in a sudden blaze of gunfire.
3 teenaged boys were shot to death last night
in a sudden blaze of gunfire.
Identified gunman shot and killed a patron of an Astoria, Queens bar today.
Blaze of gunfire.
A Manhattan man allegedly shot and killed another man on Manhattan's west side.
Gunfire.
The election goes on.
In Miami,
The election goes on.
End misgovernment and start McGovernment.
Tonight, the main event, the voting for the presidential nominee.
The order of nominating speeches. The order is George Wallace first, then Terry Sanford of North Carolina, McGovern, Shirley Chisholm, and Henry Jackson.
Tonight, the main event, the voting for the presidential nominee. All of this taking place here in this hall tonight as Richard Milhouse Nixon possibly sits in front of his television set watching carefully from the Western White House. Tonight, the main event, the voting for the presidential nominee.
The message from the American people is clear. George Wallace is the man of the hour.
Before this convention assembled here in Miami Beach, Florida, Mr. Chairman, fellow delegates, I place a nomination for the presidency of the United States of America, the name of the Honorable George Corley Wallace.
I second the nomination of the Honorable George C. Wallace, Governor of the great state of Alabama, as the nominee of this convention for the next president of the United States of America.
Tonight, the main event.
When Richard Nixon ordered the invasion of Cambodia, Terry Sanford did not barricade himself in his office. He walked onto the campus and he spoke to the students. What he said then has been said by this convention. Stop the killing. Withdraw the troops in the war. I nominate Terry Sanford for the presidency of the United States.
Tonight, the main event.
George McGovern, a quiet, strong man, has touched the conscience of America.
Second the nomination of our next president, Senator
George McGovern is the man for America's future. And I nominate Senator George McGovern for the presidency of the United States.
I rise to second the nomination of a man with a message. That man is Senator George McGovern, and that message is come home, America.
Tonight, the main event.
I present to you in nomination for the presidency of these United States, all these United States, the Honorable Shirley Chisholm.
Ours is a great party. Ours is a great nation. Ours is a great people. I nominate as our president a great man from the state of Washington, Senator Henry Scoop Jackson.
Tonight,
A man of conscience, a great man, a quiet, strong man,
A man with a message.
The man of the hour.
the man for America's future.
Tonight, they will begin to call the roll of the states to nominate a man to run for president of the United States.
Balloting will continue until a nominee is selected. The number of votes required for nomination is 1508 and a fraction. The clerk will call the roll.
California.
Call the roll of the states.
Ohio. New York. Virginia.
Call the roll of the states.
Arkansas. Indiana. Puerto Rico. Tennessee. Georgia. North Dakota. Maryland.
The roll of the states.
New Jersey. Nevada. Colorado. Alabama.
The roll of the states.
Hawaii. Washington. Minnesota. Louisiana.
The roll of the states.
Idaho. Montana. Virgin Islands. Kentucky. Missouri. New Mexico. Guam.
The roll.
Oregon. Ohio.
The states. The roll of 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 the states.
Illinois is as follows. 119 votes for Senator McGovern, 1/2 vote for Governor Wallace, 4.5 for Congresswoman Chisholm, 30.5 for Senator Jackson,
2 for Governor Sadford, 5.5 for Senator Muskie, 2 for Senator McCarthy, 3 for Senator Kennedy, and 3 for Congressman Mills.
More than 1,509 votes and the first ballot nomination.
Tonight, the Democrats have picked a nominee.
has won the Democratic presidential
Tonight,
nomination.
the Democrats
we repeat,
have
George
picked a
McGovern
nominee.
has won the Democratic presidential
Tonight,
nomination.
the
We
Democrats
repeat, George
have picked a
McGovern
nominee.
has won the Democratic presidential nomination.
The
We
Democrats
repeat, George
have picked a
McGovern has
nominee.
won the Democratic presidential nomination.
The presidency belongs to someone else.
We repeat, George McGovern has won. Senator George McGovern completed his triumph over the polls, politicians, and pundits Wednesday night with a first ballot victory for the Democratic presidential nomination.
Senator George H. McGovern, having received a majority vote of this convention's certified delegates, is hereby declared the 1972 Democratic nominee for President of the United States.
To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. And for America, the time has come at last. This is the time for truth, not falsehood. This is a time for the truth in the life of this country. This is also a time not for death, but for life. Our son, this is also the time to turn away Vietnam from excessive preoccupation overseas to the rebuilding of our own nation. Peace. We must also make this a time of justice and jobs for all our people. Senseless bombing, and this is the time to stand for those things that are close to the American spirit. Out schools. And this is the time. The dikes. It is the time for this land to become again a witness to the world for what is just and noble in human affairs. It is time to live more with faith and less with fear, with an abiding confidence that can sweep away the strongest barriers between us and teach us that we are truly brothers and sisters. And now is the time to meet that challenge. I accept your nomination with a full and grateful heart.
McGovern's final total was 1,864.95 delegates. He needed only 1,509 to win.
After only 2 hours sleep, nominee George McGovern went to work to try to win the presidency.
From secrecy and deception in high places, come home, America. From military spending so wasteful that it weakens our nation, come home, America. From the entrenchment of special privilege and tax favoritism, from the waste of idle hands to the joy of useful labor, from the prejudice based on race and sex, from the loneliness of the aging poor and the despair of the neglected sick. Come home, America. To the affirmation that we have a dream. Come home to the conviction that we can move our country forward. Come home, America. Come home to the belief that we can see a newer world.
Allow your divine spirit, O Lord, to descend on our Democratic presidential candidate, George McGovern. Guide his campaign through the path of justice, honesty, and integrity. Bless him with the necessary strength to carry on his campaign effectively.
Tonight, the selection of the Democratic candidate for vice president. Stay tuned.
At any moment, we expect an announcement of Senator McGovern's choice for his vice presidential running mate.
Tonight should be very interesting, the balloting for the vice presidential nominee.
Senator Edward Kennedy turned down the Democratic vice presidential nomination.
I hope to work with the nominee in whatever way that I can, but it will not be as the vice president.
Tonight, Senator Thomas Eagleton is George McGovern's choice.
The convention tonight is expected to give McGovern his choice, his third choice.
I place in nomination the name of the next Vice President of the United States, Senator Thomas F. Eagleton.
Tonight, the candidates appear. This broadcast is sponsored by the makers of Lincoln Continental and Continental Mark IV. Continental, the final step up.
I think we learned from watching the Republicans 4 years ago as they selected their vice presidential nominee
that it pays to take a little more time.
With profound gratitude to you, the delegates, and of course to Senator McGovern, I accept your nomination.
Senator Thomas Eagleton withdrew as the Democratic vice presidential nominee.
Who will be the Democratic nominee for vice president?
I will recommend the selection of Sergeant Schreiber as my presidential running mate.
George McGovern's seventh choice.
I accept the nomination of this great party.
May God grant each one of us the wisdom to cherish this good land and to meet the great challenge that beckons us home. And now is the time to meet that challenge. It was Lyndon Johnson who promised that we should overcome. And beginning next January, under the leadership of President George McGovern, we shall overcome.
It's been a very long series of nights at this Democratic convention.
Good night and Godspeed to you all.
What's going to happen in Miami Beach continues.
Now it's the Republicans' turn.
The party in power. Campaign 72, the election year. Richard Nixon's convention.
Nixon now!
The star, Richard Milhouse Nixon, will be playing an old familiar role.
Nixon now.
He's been accepting nominations for president and vice president since 1952.
Nixon now!
Good afternoon. The Republicans convene their 30th National Convention this afternoon, awash in a sea of red and white and blue.
From Miami Beach, ABC News presents Convention 72.
It's Richard Milhouse Nixon's convention, of course. It's controlled, precisely timed, designed to put the best spotlight on the ceremonious launching of his bid for re-election.
I feel with all my heart that the re-election of Richard Nixon is absolutely essential to the survival of the United States of America.
Watergate case.
Based on what I've seen on television at this convention, those who have predicted that the other side is going to win the young voters are simply wrong. We're going to win.
This is the year of the young voters.
As a representative of the young voters, I proudly endorse our president and his philosophy.
The Watergate case.
We want an administration after the election in the next 4 years in which we can be worthy of the enthusiasm and the trust and the hopes and the ideals of young Americans.
Is going to give Richard Nixon the biggest majority of any president in this century.
I certainly can tell you that we're mighty proud of our youth organization this year, which is the largest and the best ever.
Young voters.
Young Americans.
Young America.
We are proud, too, that we don't have a generation gap.
I express the appreciation of all of the delegates and of all America for letting us see young America at its best at our convention.
Good evening. On the day, the news was again dominated by Vietnam and American politics.
So sit back and enjoy the show, because we're going to stay with it from gavel to gavel.
The colors will now enter.
This Republican convention hall will become the largest working television studio in the country.
So sit back and enjoy the show.
Heavenly Father, so high above us, yet so deep within us, give us eyes to look in before we look around.
The Watergate case.
Reflect yourself in each of our lives with the belief that while many are helpless, no one is hopeless. We ask your blessing upon President Nixon and his family.
Listen, America, Nixon now, Nixon now, Nixon now, more than ever, Nixon now.
President Nixon now more than ever.
The president does not serve alone in the White House. He shares his dreams with a remarkable First Lady, Pat Nixon.
Mr. Chairman, delegates, friends of America everywhere, I give you the First Lady of our land, the First Lady of our world, Patricia Ryan Nixon.
Well, I certainly can say this is the most wonderful welcome I've ever had. And thanks to the young people for this great welcome.
I express my deep gratitude to this convention for the tribute to have paid to the best campaigner in the Nixon family, my wife, Pat.
At her hotel, Mrs. Nixon saw a number of protesters, most of them young people.
And thanks to the young people for this great welcome.
Demonstrators stepped up the tempo of their protest.
The continued bombing of North Vietnam.
I wonder who are the adult doom criers who have given those young people who are outside our hall tonight their distorted view of this, their native land.
Let us build a peace that our children and all the children of the world can enjoy for generations to come.
For a century of peace ahead.
Some of the demonstrators and some of the police on your screen. The demonstrators burned an American flag.
And I say to those young people who deserted America, stay where you are.
Anti-war.
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 Demonstrators.
Protesters. Non-delegates.
Protesters.
Demonstrators.
Demonstrations. Demonstrators.
Continued bombing.
Non-delegates. Police.
For generations to come.
O Lord our God, Master of men and nations, we invoke thy benedictions upon all the men, women, and children of America, upon this distinguished assemblage, and upon the President of these United States.
Richard Nixon is the right man in the right office at the right time.
Almighty God, we thank thee
We ask
for
your
the
blessing
blessings.
upon President Nixon and his family.
Richard M. Nixon, our president today, our president tomorrow, and our president for the next 4 years.
All compassionate God, lift our hungry spirits to your spirit, that we might be enabled to serve you and all people in hope and in humility.
We stand for a strong America.
With the prophet Isaiah of old,
We stand for a humane America.
we declare,
We stand for a clean America.
Shalom, Shalom,
We stand for a just America.
Larachok v'lakarov,
We stand for a reformed America.
to the far and to the near.
We stand for a good and decent America.
Peace, peace.
We have the opportunity in our time to be the peacemakers of the world.
In this historic hour, in these crucial days, we pray not as partisans, but as Americans.
Not a wave is in sight to ripple the calm attending the renomination tonight of Richard Nixon for president. His fifth time on the GOP ticket, and that's a record.
Tonight, I think I'm going to be nominated tonight.
While others talked, the president acted.
We cannot take George McGovern.
The president has brought us to the threshold of a generation of peace.
Richard Nixon has shown that he cares, and on November 7th, we're going to show him that we care. Nixon now!
We need this man of action, this man of accomplishments, this man of experience, this man of courage, this man of faith in America.
Nixon now!
Nixon now!
It is my great honor to nominate Richard Nixon for re-election as the next president of the United States.
The vote for Richard Nixon is 1,347. The vote for Paul McCloskey is 1. And therefore, I declare the nominee of the Republican Party for President of the United States, President Richard Nixon. Nixon now! Nixon now!
Here now the news. The Washington Post reports today that plans for spying on the Democrats were being made far in advance of the breaking in at Democratic headquarters at Watergate. The Post saying the Watergate was not an isolated case and that plans were being made with the full knowledge of President Nixon.
Richard Nixon is a good guy, a decent man, and a great president.
Last night, the Republicans renominated the Nixon-Agnew ticket.
The magic hour, the climax of this great convention is close at hand.
There will be nominating and balloting for the vice presidential nomination, which will be given to Vice President
Ted
Agnew.
Agnew has spoken to the heart of America from his heart.
The Republican convention is progressing on schedule.
Ladies and gentlemen, I proudly present to this great convention the Vice President of the United States, Honorable Sparrow T. Agnew.
1,348 for Sparrow T. Agnew, 2 not voting, and 1 for David Brinkley.
The big event tonight, President Nixon's acceptance speech.
So here on the spot where George McGovern made his first acceptance speech, Richard Nixon will be making his 5th and last.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to present to you the nominee of this convention for President of the United States, the President of the United States, Richard Nixon.
Standing in this convention hall 4 years ago, I pledged to seek an honorable end to the war in Vietnam.
Why, Mr. Nixon, did you take another 4 more years to put an end to this tragic war?
We have made great progress toward that end. We have brought over 500,000 men home, and more will be coming home.
In 1968, many Americans thought they were voting to bring our sons home from Vietnam in peace. And since then, 20,000 of our sons have come home in coffins.
At the cemetery, I saw the picture of a 12-year-old girl. Her name was Tanya. I read her diary. It tells the terrible story of war. In the simple words of a child, she wrote of the deaths of the members of her family. These were the last words in her diary. All are dead. Only Tanya is left.
Let us think of Tanya, said Mr. Nixon, and all the other Tanyas everywhere, as we proudly meet our responsibility for leadership.
In the world.
Since Mr. Nixon became president, 165,000 South Vietnamese civilians, men, women, and children, have been killed by American bombs.
Let us build a peace that our children and all the children of the world can enjoy for generations to come.
Shalom, shalom, la rachok de la karov, to the far and to the near. Peace, peace.
George McGovern described the Republican convention as a slick and cynical spectacle. A slick and cynical spectacle.
And now turning to the presidential election campaign.
On the move today.
On the road today.
And
now turning to the
American presidential election.
United States presidential election.
Nixon campaign.
McGovern campaign.
Agnew campaign.
Shriver campaign.
This is going to be a national campaign carried to every part of the nation, north, south, north, and west. We are not conceding a single state to Richard Nixon.
Campaign 72. And the McGovern campaign tonight needs money.
George McGovern and Richard Nixon differ on many issues, but nothing shows more clearly their difference as men than the way they have financed and run their campaigns.
Whether or not it is a landslide of votes, it certainly will be a landslide of money. About $300 million, more or less. Some came from people giving small sums, but most from labor union and business leaders giving huge amounts. One individual gave $1 million. Small givers get some personal satisfaction, but big ones get special favors.
Think for a moment about this one case in which ITT was faced with an antitrust suit from the Department of Justice. They then gave $400,000 to the Republican National Convention, and suddenly the Department of Justice dropped that suit.
Big ones get special favors. Big ones get special favors.
George McGovern's campaign is being funded by the people, not by secret funds or special interests.
We can do away with dollar democracy in government by the few and fight again and again for public financing of presidential election campaigns.
Campaign 72, it's 2 weeks and a day before the elections, and all 4 candidates for national office are on the move today. Democrat George McGovern is concentrating on television appearances today.
President Nixon today made a campaign speech on radio.
The vice presidential candidates are busy today.
A man tried to attack George McGovern during a campaign stop.
Good evening. On the day the news was again dominated by Vietnam and American politics.
The Watergate affair has been the linchpin of George McGovern's charges of up and down the line corruption within the Nixon administration.
McGovern charged that John Mitchell quit as Mr. Nixon's campaign manager because he was involved in the Watergate bugging case.
There is a report today that President Nixon has been convinced by the FBI director, Al Patrick Gray, to investigate more thoroughly the possible involvement of White House staff members in the so-called Watergate case.
Good evening. The United States and North Vietnam are closer to peace tonight.
Reports that a Vietnam peace agreement is near are stronger than ever.
U.S. airstrikes will be flown against North Vietnam, even as presidential aide Henry Kissinger continues peace negotiations in Paris.
Meanwhile, President Nixon is busy campaigning for the next 4-year term.
George McGovern was on the road today in his presidential campaign.
Tonight, McGovern goes on nationwide television to discuss his plan for peace in Vietnam.
Tonight, I ask you to think carefully about an issue that has troubled me more than any other for the last 9 years, the war in Vietnam.
George McGovern continuing to challenge President Nixon's handling. George McGovern continuing to challenge President Nixon's handling of the Vietnam War. Said again today that the election eve peace rumors do not signal an end of the war.
The Viet Cong representative said rumors are rumors and bombs are bombs.
In Vietnam itself, the Associated Press reports President Nixon has ordered a reduction of American bombing raids over the north, while critical peace talks continue.
Prospects for peace in Vietnam are
Critical
still
peace
showing
talks
a positive
continue.
reaction on Wall Street.
As you know,
Critical peace talks continue.
in the negotiations which
Critical
will
peace
lead
talks
to
continue.
peace in Vietnam.
At a White House news conference this morning, terms of a ceasefire agreement between North Vietnam and the United States were announced by Presidential Advisor Henry Kissinger.
We believe that peace is at hand. We believe that an agreement is within sight.
Many people have been looking at this recent event. They've been listening to the peace talk, peace talk, peace talk. It's peace, peace, peace.
Peace is at hand.
Despite talk that peace may be just around the corner, more death and destruction is reported in Southeast Asia.
We'll have more on the peace moves in Vietnam after this message.
Prospects for peace.
Peace moves.
Peace negotiations.
War in Vietnam.
War.
The longest war in American history.
Bombs. Airstrikes.
Temporary truce lasting peace.
Peace talk, peace talk, peace talk, peace, peace, peace.
Bomb. 2-day attacks.
When the history of this time is written, there will be some names written high above the others. Fallen American soldiers. They will be the names of the fallen American soldiers.
Our sons have asked for an education, and we've taught them how to kill.
What about amnesty? The bombs bursting in air.
American planes carried out 250 airstrikes against North Vietnam yesterday.
The bombs bursting in air.
American B-52s have followed up their heaviest 2-day attacks of the war on North Vietnam.
The bombs bursting in air.
As the bombs kept falling, Dr. Kissinger kept traveling.
The bombs bursting in air.
Bombs still fall.
The bombs bursting in air.
We've now dropped 7 million tons of bombs on North and South Vietnam.
Today, the combat role of American troops in Vietnam is over.
Those bombs have obviously killed tens of thousands of innocent people. It represents 3.5 times the entire bomb load that we dropped in World War II.
And the rocket's red glare.
We will make our own decisions as to how long we believe a war should be continued.
For the moment, the fighting continues. We are going to sign the agreement when the agreement is right, not one day before.
Mr. Nixon will not sign the peace agreement.
I will.
And when the agreement is right, we are going to sign without 1 day's delay.
Mr. Nixon will not end the war. It will be my very first act as President of the United States.
We have now made a major breakthrough toward achieving our goal of peace with honor in Vietnam.
After 4 more years of war, he sends Dr. Kissinger out to tell us a week ago that at long last, peace is at hand. But is there anybody here tonight who is going to be so foolish as to buy that line again in the closing days of this campaign?
Tuesday is Election Day. It's the most important day in our democracy.
If Mr. Nixon is elected on Tuesday, we may very well have 4 more years of war in Southeast Asia.
Next Tuesday is our democracy's day of decision.
On November the 7th, Nixon's not in power, McGovern's not in power. Power is in the hands of the people.
On Tuesday, whoever gets 270 electoral votes wins.
How about you? In this election 72, have you made up your mind?
For Mr. Agnew, I go coast to coast.
The election goes on.
Because the gentleman is a champ.
Have you made up your mind?
Campaign 72 winds up today with all 4 major candidates expected to make major campaign statements.
Shall we have peace with honor or peace with surrender? Always in the past, you have answered peace with honor. By giving that same answer once again on November the 7th, you can help make certain that peace with honor can now be achieved.
4 years ago last night, on October 9th, 1968, Mr. Nixon, as a candidate for president, said to a crowd in California, and I quote, "Those who have had a chance for 4 years and could not produce peace should not be given another chance." Now, Mr. Nixon has had his chance. He could not produce peace in 4 years, and we have every indication that he cannot produce peace in 8 years.
We cannot make all of the world's people love each other.
Love American style will not be seen today.
But we can establish conditions in which they will be more likely to live in peace with one another.
Tuesday is Election Day.
This Tuesday will be a day of reckoning for America. It will be the day when we decide between war and peace.
Next Tuesday is our democracy's day of decision.
Power is in the hands of the people.
President Nixon, now more than ever.
Have you made up your mind?
Tonight, from the Senate wing of the Capitol, the candidate of the Democratic Party for the presidency of the United States, George McGovern, speaks to the nation.
The issue is integrity.
Senator McGovern compares the President of the United States to Adolf Hitler.
I have never referred to President Nixon as an Adolf Hitler. I have said that the dropping of several million tons of bombs on the civilian population of Indochina is the most barbaric thing that has happened since World War II, since the Nazis were in power.
As the first American president ever to visit China, President Nixon is met by Prime Minister Zhou Enlai.
Since Mr. Nixon became president, the cost of living has gone up 19%, and your wages have been frozen.
Within hours, he meets with Chairman Mao Zedong, and they begin the hard business of diplomacy and negotiation.
Since Mr. Nixon became president, the cost of frozen fish has gone from 69 cents to $1.29.
President Nixon has opened the door. Now the work must continue. That's why we need President Nixon now more than ever.
So next time you're in the supermarket, ask yourself, can you afford 4 more years of Mr. Nixon?
You, the voter. Chairman Mao Zedong.
Frozen fish.
Chairman Mao Zedong.
Cost of living. Can you afford 4 more years of Mr. Nixon?
You, the voter, will say it all.
Go out and vote
for what you know is right. Vote for George McGovern and Sergeant Shriver.
Come home to the Democratic Party now.
Go out and vote.
Just remember, 3 votes. 1 for Nixon, 1 for your senator on the Republican side, and 1 for your congressman.
Vote. The latest Gallup poll shows George McGovern at 35% of the vote, 26 points behind. The latest Harris poll also shows McGovern at 35%, with the president at 59%.
This is going to be one of those years when we prove that the polls are wrong.
You think Napoleon Bonaparte took a poll before he started to try to get power in France?
Winner takes all.
Let's wait and see what happens on November 7th.
Winner takes all.
We're thinking about victory on November 7th.
All night election night.
We'll report not only
All
who's
night
winning,
election
but
night.
why at
All
CBS
night
News.
election night.
Election night on
All night
NBC.
election
Election
night.
Day television
All night
coverage, the
election
finest
night.
election coverage.
All night
Tuesday
election
night, the
night.
most complete
All night
election night
election
coverage
night.
ever. Watch.
Good evening. The signs all are pointing tonight to a landslide victory by President Nixon over Senator McGovern.
Watch.
68%.
Idaho.
Again, 63%. McGovern's 37%.
Kansas.
59%.
78%, 65%.
Louisiana.
Mississippi. 16.5 million. Senator McGovern,
Missouri.
8.5 million. 64,
Pennsylvania.
35%.
Richard
Montana. 19,852,000.
Nebraska.
Senator McGovern,
New Jersey.
11,282,000.
New Mexico.
34 electoral votes.
3
Connecticut.
New York
New
State. President Nixon. 2-1 for Nixon. 2-1 for
New York. 496 electoral
Oregon.
votes.
Nixon.
Senator McGovern, 17 electoral votes.
South
Oklahoma.
Dakota. 1 million votes counted so far. For
North
President
Carolina.
Nixon.
Utah.
11 million votes counted so far.
Nixon.
For
South
George
Dakota.
McGovern. 54%.
The state of Washington.
President Nixon at this
Louisiana.
hour. 25
Wisconsin.
percentage point
Rhode
lead
Island.
over George McGovern.
Wyoming.
62%
Nebraska.
to the president. 37%.
Rhode
for
Island.
George
Nevada.
McGovern. 75%. 52%.
Idaho.
498
Georgia,
Alabama,
Utah.
Virginia, Indiana. President Nixon has been re-elected.
Watergate.
President Nixon has won re-election.
Watergate case.
The pollsters had it, the people did it, and it will be 4 more years for Richard Nixon as President of the United States.
Watergate bugging case.
A GOP campaign chant of 4 more years is now a reality.
What happened last night? Landslide victory.
One of the greatest landslide victories in American political history.
A huge landslide margin means nothing at all unless it is a victory for America.
Power is in the hands of the people.
What happened last night was that Richard Nixon swept 49 of the 50 states in a stunning re-election triumph.
Respect, Senator McGovern. The game. Great game of life. Game of politics. Great game of politics. The better competition, the better people, the better programs, our country. The election, great tasks, campaign, country, parties, united. Americans desire peace. Peace with honor. Peace that will last. Great goal. Vietnam. A new era of peace. Relationships. Superpowers. The Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China and the United States. Greatest generation of peace. True peace. The whole world. Great goal. Democrats, Republicans. All of us. Prosperity without war and without inflation. Progress for all Americans. Young American. Great country. Equal chance. One of the great political victories of all time. Votes. Huge landslide margin. Victory for America. Victory for America. Next 4 years, all of us, together, common great goals. Peace at home, peace for all nations in the world. New progress and prosperity. All Americans in this country, building peace in the world. God bless America.
The returns this morning confirm just how big Mr. Nixon's victory was. He piled up 521 out of 538 electoral votes. Senator George McGovern got his 17 votes in only one state, in the District of Columbia.
All night election night.
For George Stanley McGovern, last night was the end of a long road that took him more than 200,000 miles over the last 22 months to defeat.
All of the satisfaction and joy that we have found in these past 22 months are not going to be washed away with the tears and regrets of one night.
We are on the eve of what could be the greatest generation of peace, true peace for the whole world. that man has ever known.
And the Vietnam War goes on.
There's a huge war going on.
The war goes on for our sons who are still ordered into battle.
The election goes on.
And the war goes on.
We will make our own decisions as to how long we believe a war should be continued.
The election goes on.
We'll probably never know until long after the election is over how much internal sabotage was done by these paid political agents working for Mr. Nixon's re-election.
I still don't see the connection between the President of the United States and the Watergate case.
The election goes on. The election goes on. The election goes on.